In this video, we'll see that the ability to price discriminate can sometimes be a bad thing. So we're going to look at the case of durable goods and see why the ability of the monopolist to price discriminate over time can actually reduce their profits. So first of all, what is a durable good? Well, a durable good is just a good that is not used up over time. Examples of durable goods are computers, cars, photocopiers, washing machines. So all of these goods, they last for a long time, they're not used up as you consume them. This is in contrast to a non-durable good. So a non-durable good is a good that is consumed in one use or several uses. So examples of non-durable goods are train tickets, bread, paper, and I'm sure you can think of many more. If you do think of examples, there's a link to provide examples of durable goods and non-durable goods. So why is it that with a durable good, price discrimination can actually lead to lower profit? So let's think about durable goods. So think about a monopolist. They produce a good, they might first sell it to high valuation buyers, and then they're going to be leftover consumers who have a lower valuation, and they might be tempted to lower the price to sell to those consumers. So as an example, suppose that Samsung launches a new smartphone today and prices it at £600 and then lowers the price to £100 6 months from now. So Samsung will be hoping that this will lead to the high valuation buyers buying now at £600 and the lower valuation buyers waiting for 6 months and buying at £100. Unfortunately here, the high valuation buyers, if they're rational, they'll anticipate Samsung's lowering of the price and therefore they might want to wait. So Samsung's price discrimination can actually lead to them having a lower profit than if they could commit to a higher price, the price of £600 forever. So although it might seem at first glance that this ability to price discriminate is always a good thing, it can be a bad thing with durable goods. So this is why it's called the durable goods curse. So to illustrate the problem more clearly, let's look at an example. So in this example, there are two types of consumers. There are high value consumers and there are low value consumers. And half of the consumers are high value, half are low value. We have their willingness to pay. So if they buy today, then they're willing to pay up to £600. If they buy tomorrow, they're willing to pay up to £300. So here, the idea is 600 is twice 300, because if you buy it today, you get to use it both today and tomorrow, whereas if you buy it tomorrow, you only get to use the good tomorrow. For low value consumers, they're willing to pay 200 today and 100 tomorrow, so 100 in each period. We're going to assume a zero marginal cost, so that revenue is the same thing as profit. And here, the total number of consumers is 1. We have to assume a continuum of consumers here just for a technical reason which you don't need to worry about. Let's first of all think about what would happen if the monopolist carries out this strategy of pricing at 600 a day and then selling to the leftover low value consumers at 100 tomorrow. If the consumers are naive, so that the high value consumers do not anticipate that the monopolist will lower the price tomorrow, then what would be the monopolist's profit? Well, it would sell to the high valuation consumers at 600 today and to the low valuation consumers at 100 tomorrow. Its profit would be a half times 600 plus a half times 100, or 350. However, if the consumers are not naive, then the high valuation consumers will anticipate the lower price. They would prefer to wait because they're willing to pay 300 tomorrow, which is more than the 100 they have to pay. They would get a consumer surplus from waiting, whereas if they buy today, they would pay exactly what they're willing to pay and get no consumer surplus. So if the consumers are not naive, they're sophisticated, then the profit would be only 1 times 100, because they're all buying tomorrow at 100, which is 100, which is much less than if the consumers were naive. So this is the outcome of the pricing at 600 today and pricing at 100 tomorrow. Is this the best the monopolist can do? Well, no, they can actually do better by pricing so that the high valuation consumers buy today and the low valuation consumers buy tomorrow. So what would be the best prices to charge in order for that to happen? So we need to worry about the participation constraint and the incentive compatibility constraint. So I'll write down the best prices and then I'll explain why they are the best prices. So if the monopolist prices at 400 today and 100 tomorrow, then the low valuation consumer will buy tomorrow. They don't want to pay 400 today because they're only willing to pay 200. They get a zero consumer surplus from this option. So the participation constraint for the low valuation consumer holds with equality. They pay exactly what they're willing to pay. The high valuation consumer, on the other hand, they will choose this option because they're getting a surplus of 600 minus 400, which is 200. Whereas if they buy the other option, they get 300 minus 100, which is also 200. So they're indifferent between those two options. The incentive compatibility constraint for the high valuation consumer holds with equality. So what is the profit? The profit is going to be a half times 400 plus a half times 100, which is 250. So that's better than 100, but it's not as good as if the consumers were naive and the monopolists were able to price at 600 today and sell to those high valuation consumers. They have to lower the price from 600 to 400 so that the high valuation consumers do not want to put off their purchase. So this is the best the monopolist can do if it cannot commit. So the commitment problem here is that the monopolist always has this temptation to lower its price in the future once it's sold to the high valuation consumers, because if it lowers the price in the future, it can also sell to the low valuation consumers. So let's see what the cost is of not being able to commit. Can the monopolist do better than 250? So let's suppose that the monopolist prices at 600 today and 600 tomorrow. Now we need the monopolist to be able to commit, because if it couldn't, then if it priced at 600 today, it's going to sell to the high valuation consumers. They won't put off buying because it's also 600 tomorrow, which is more than 300. The monopolist, once they've sold to the high valuation consumers at 600 today, will then want to change their price tomorrow. They will want to lower it to 100. And because the high valuation consumer anticipates this, we'll end up back here with a profit of 100. But if the monopolist is able to commit, then what profit will it get? It prices at 600 today, 600 tomorrow. Its profit is going to be a half times 600, which is 300, which is more than 250. So the inability to commit to a high price, the problem that the monopolist always wants to lower the price in the future, is costing the monopolist 50 in terms of profit. So the best the monopolist can do with commitment is higher. So this is the durable goods curse. The inability to commit is lowering the profit of the monopolist because they cannot commit not to price discriminate. Now, this is just an example of unprofitable versioning. We could come up with numbers such that it's actually better to price like we have here and sell to both groups, one today and one tomorrow, than to price only to the high valuation group. So all the durable goods curse is unprofitable versioning, and the reason that the monopolist ends up with the lower profit here is because it can't stop itself from price discriminating over time.